Hello everyone, welcome to the channel or welcome back. Thank you so much for being patient with me. I did not stay healthy last week, but I'm all good now. I'm all better. I'm ready to get back into this and ready to get the show going, continuing, whatever. Now this is definitely going to be one of my favorite videos because we're finally going to be discussing my baby girl, my everything, Scarlet Witch. So to be more specific, we're going to be talking about Scarlet Witch in the comics a little bit, WandaVision, of course, and the grief that she goes through, which is a lot and intense. So let's get into it. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention obvious spoilers ahead for comic books and movies and shows and all that, so please keep that in mind. Now I'm going to do my best to give a summary about Wanda, but it's mainly going to be focused on the grief and trauma that she experiences. So first we're going to focus on comic book Wanda and then the Marvel Cinematic Universe Wanda. So starting off with Wanda's origin, so she has her brother Pietro, who's Quicksilver because he runs super fast. Depending on the comic book arc that you read, there's some where they have their parents, mom and dad, others where Magneto, a very powerful mutant, is their biological father, and another one where they actually get kidnapped by the High Evolutionary, are returned and then classified as mutants. As we can see, there's already a lot going on here for Wanda. So moving on to her powers, Wanda's main powers comes from chaos magic. This is where she's able to alter reality and control different forms of magical energy. And funny enough, in the comics, Agatha Harkness actually helps her to control and better understand her powers. Now, Wanda has many other abilities, but those are the main ones that we can focus on for right now. Just know that she's very powerful because, of course, she is. She's amazing. So to continue with the comics, Wanda creates her two twin boys, Billy and Tommy, who basically had the same powers as her and her brother. But they're ultimately destroyed by Mephisto. And if that name sounds familiar, that name was definitely being tossed around with all the theories of WandaVision. So after this, Agatha casts a spell on Wanda to forget about what happened in order to ease her grief. But Wanda remembers. She pretty much remembers and has a mental breakdown, kills some of the Avengers. Vision, the love of her life, is killed. And people are kind of like, what are we gonna do about her? What's the vibe? What's the move? I think we gotta kill her. You know, they're pretty much going that direction. So this leads to the House of M comic book arc. So she finds out that they're gonna try to kill her. She creates a world where it's mostly mutants. Her brother dies, then gets revived, then she gets betrayed by her dad, Magneto, and ultimately says the famous line, "No more mutants." So I'm going to stop right there and talking about comic book Wanda, because as we can see, there's a lot going on with her. Also, that was a very rough summary of House of M. Highly recommend that you read it. Very good story, good stuff. Anyways, so now we're going to switch focus to the movie Wanda. And I have a lot to say about what they did with her character, but I digress. Now, Wanda's origin story has very much split from the comics. So in the movies, she volunteers for Hydra experiments, gets her powers from the Mind Stone, and there's no mention of mutant at all, but that's due to studio wars and stupid stuff like that. So she immediately loses her brother in the first movie that they appear in because why not, I guess. She does not have total control of her powers, which results in incidences and accords. Falls in love with Vision, but then has to kill him in order to save the world. But then the villain comes in, revives him, kills him all over again right in front of her. And then she takes a town hostage in order to deal with her loss and trauma. I mean, who wouldn't do that? Am I right, ladies? Okay, sorry. I just need to mention one thing that happened in Infinity War, and that's the fact when Wanda and Vision are going up against the children of Thanos, and they get, cornered at one point, and it's like, okay, it's Wanda's time to shine. Let's see it. Let's see how powerful you really are, because true Wanda fans know. But now, the normiest of normies of the Avengers show up and save them. Just make it make sense. But like I said, I digress. Let's move on. So let's get into grief. I feel like a majority of people know about the 5 stages of grief that include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And if you are an avid watcher of WandaVision, you could clearly see these playing out throughout the series. And I just have to say, Marvel did an excellent job in portraying grief and trauma in the series and Wanda. And I know in the past movies, we saw Tony dealing with anxiety, PTSD, and Thor with depression. But this was just excellent. Like, episode 8, absolute perfection. So Wanda's denial comes through just by creating the town and anything from the real world coming in, throwing it right back out, not facing it. The anger comes with Sword taking Vision questioning her, and even by her not accepting responsibility for the things that she has done throughout the town. And yes, that does coincide with anger. Then we have bargaining, and from what I can remember, Wanda doesn't really do a lot of bargaining in the series, besides a typical bargain with the villain. But there is a part where the twins ask Wanda to bring Sparky back from the dead. And since the twins are essentially an extension of her, this is where the bargaining piece comes in, of wanting that thing, that animal, that person back, but she's able to accept that it cannot happen. So then the depression comes through in episode 7. This is where she says, it's just a case of a Mondays, am I right? And that's when you say, no girl, you got depression. And lastly, her acceptance, the last episode, where she's able to let go of the town and the reality that she created, including her family. So let's get more into the grief aspect of WandaVision. And obviously, everybody grieves differently. Some people will cry, laugh, busy themselves with work, throw up, or just feel numb. Some people can recover quickly, or it may take them a while. But let's remember that there's no right way to grieve. In the normal grief process, there is the acute grief that you experience immediately after the loss. You feel shock, distress, sadness, poor appetite, sleep trouble, and poor concentration. Now, these symptoms will slowly decrease over time, and you'll go into integrated grief. This is where most of those intense symptoms are resolved. You're able to accept the new reality and go about your daily living. This doesn't mean you miss your loved ones any less or feel no pain for their passing. It just means that you learned how to cope. And yes, the acute grief may show up again, but this will be around significant dates like anniversaries or other reminders. But Wanda did not experience the normal grieving process. She also experienced complicated grief. This is where the acute symptoms never seem to go away and can last for years. The loss continues to feel unreal and unmanageable. You may constantly be yearning for the deceased or experience guilt about moving on and accepting the loss. And who can blame her? We need to remember that Wanda feels alone. She has no family members. The one person she shared herself with is gone. She visits the place where they're going to settle down, yearns for him, and luckily, because she has powers, she's able to create a reality where she can stay in her denial and continue her complicated grief. And this is what appears to happen with Scarlet Witch in the comics, where she would create realities that would please her, and anything that would go against it, well, you could feel her wrath. So I just really wanted to talk about WandaVision and the Scarlet Witch because I love them so much, and to be able to do it in a mental health lens, I feel like is really cool. And to get more insight into grief, because if we just looked at it as those 5 steps, I mean, grief is so much more complicated than that. And I think we can all agree that people act differently when they grieve. And it takes time for people to accept the new reality and be able to move on. And if you feel that complicated grief is going on in your life, be sure to reach out to your support system, a therapist, or therapy groups based on grief. And if you know someone who is grieving right now, be sure to be there to support them any way that you can. So let me know if you enjoyed the video. I know I did. And let me know if there's any other superheroes, characters, TV shows, movies, whatever that you would like to see in a deeper dive of mental health, and we could do some more of that. I didn't even get into Wanda's trauma or the commercials or even all of episode 8, so... Alright, you know the drill. You need to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you all in the next video. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye!